Welcome to the AHA Real Estate Education Podcast, where real estate students come to get tips, strategies, and secrets to pass the state exam. If you are lost in the chaos of real estate terms and definitions, you have come to the right place. Now here is the real estate expert and legendary instructor himself, Brian Lee.
Hello, future real estate agents, and thank you for listening. I am your podcast host, Brian Lee. It is my mission to help you understand this world of real estate as much as I can, pass the class if you're not through that already, and ultimately knock out that exam. So that way you can be done with this thing and move on to the next challenge of being a licensed real estate agent. So welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here today. I'm recording this on Groundhog Day. It's interesting. For those of you that have seen the movie, I just, when I put this together, putting the script together, I thought it was funny that those of you that have seen the movie with Bill Murray in it, the day goes over and over again. It just keeps happening over and over again. And I just learned an interesting fact, a little interesting tidbit that somebody, I did not do this, it was interesting to me, but somebody did the calculation that for Bill and his character, Phil, I think is what his name was, but the character in Groundhog Day would have had to have gone through like over 12,000 days. It was like 33 years that he would have been stuck on that perpetual day. So those of you that have seen the movie, you totally know what I'm getting. If you haven't seen the movie, oh my gosh, go out and see it. It is hilarious. It is just an all-time classic movie, just a good popcorn movie to sit back and relax and all that. And the point of me bringing it up is obviously it is Groundhog Day, but also I bet a lot of you are feeling like taking the exam, that going through the class, that listening to this podcast over and over again, it feels like it's Groundhog Day, right? Like it's like I'm living the same day over and over and over again. Hopefully, gosh, please, it's not 33 years, that it's, well over 12,000 days of the same day over and over again, but I get it. Anyway, just thought that was funny, a quick analogy to what some of you might be feeling as far as going through that thing over and over again. So happy Groundhog's Day to everybody. Happy February 2nd and all that. But again, let's get through that. Let's break through the cycle. Let's be like Bill Murray's character. Finally find the love that he found the goodness in his heart and broke that cycle and finally was able to move on to the next day. So anyway, there's that. I was thinking about this too for me, and somebody had talked to me. I just taught a CE class a couple of weeks ago. And when I teach CE class, I'm all in. Those of you that know me, again, sorry about the tangent, but just there's a point to what I'm getting into. I go all in. I mean, emotionally, psychologically, and the point of me bringing that up is that it takes me about a week to recover. It does. It's funny. In fact, if you kind of sense my nasally voice, that's actually one of the results of it. Is that when I get worn down, it breaks my body. I swear it does. So anyway, bringing that up, somebody said, Brian, why do you keep doing that? I mean, last week, if you saw me, you thought I probably died. And I felt like it too. And somebody asked me why I did it. And I said, it's just, I do it. I teach, but I love to learn. And I love to try to put that message out there, to never, ever stop learning. I know that many of you are probably done. When you are done with the exam, when you're done, listen to this podcast and all that, you're like, I'm ready to move on. I'm finally through the exam. I'm done learning. Don't ever stop learning, guys. I say it almost every episode. You guys know that I'm in law school right now, finishing up my second year now. I'm very happy that I'm doing that. Very proud of myself for doing that. But I'm learning something every single class, every single day I'll go in there. Don't ever stop learning, guys. Don't ever stop learning. I know that, again, right now it might seem like, hey, I need to give it up. And I totally get that, once you're through this, maybe take a break for a month. I needed the week to recover. Maybe you need a month, but don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop learning. One of the things that is I find is a tragedy, if you will, is that so many people just give up. And what I mean give up, they give up learning. Like I've got everything I need. I'm just going to get through it. And I've seen this in the real world in multiple ways. Real estate certainly being one of those things. And I just cannot encourage you enough to ever stop learning. This is something that your clients will recognize that when you know more, when you understand more, when you can help them more, when you can give them more information, it proves your value. And in this world of real estate, you're going to need that. You're going to need to be able to prove your value. So even if it means, and this is not to encourage you to come back and listen to my podcast, but still coming back and listening to the show every once in a while and all that. Again, in the future, you'll be listening to it because maybe you're wanting to just refresh on a topic, not because I need to know that for the test. I really remember that thing. The answer was D, right, Brian? It doesn't matter. It's that you got the concepts. You can use that and apply that. So that is my message for the month. Don't ever stop learning, guys. I hope that you don't, and hopefully I can help you along that path as we go along through this. So I have with me a recent list of grads. So I have a long list here. I'm going to get through this. Again, my voice is giving up on me a little bit, so work with me a little bit here. So the list this month is Angela, Jerry, Charlie, Caitlin, Jennifer, Kelly, Laura, Michelle, Samantha, Ryan, Jessica, Melanie, Jay, Tatiana, Will, Andrea, Raquel, Bailey, Itzel, Chelsea, Danny, Charlie, Caitlin, Lisa, Jackie, Diana, Ryan, Kathy, Gabe, Benjamin, Chris, Alexis, Trisha, Terry, Dee, Jerry, Josh, Terry, Tom, Cassandra, Natalie, Christine, Katie, David, Letitia, Jason, Shayna, Stephanie, Lee, Hannah, Laura, Noelle, Russ, Beth, Bill, and Jennifer. Woo! That was awesome. Great job, guys. That is so awesome. So awesome for you. I'm so proud of you and all that. And just, gosh, I love that list. I love seeing that every month. Thank you for emailing me. Thank you for showing up on the Facebook pages and all that, letting me know that you have knocked it out. I love giving you guys a shout out and just feeling that excitement from you. Several of you sent me messages. And again, every month I'm relegated to trying to choose a couple here and there. So I picked two, again, just somewhat randomly, but again, just pick two that I thought maybe would be a little bit of inspiration for those of you that are listening. The first one is from Kelly out of Minnesota. So Kelly out of Minnesota writes, "Hello, Brian. I'm so excited I get to send you this email. I feel incredibly blessed and grateful that I passed the test on the first try." That is so awesome. First try. 41-year-old woman who has been wanting to get my license for 20 years. That girl is flipping awesome. You and I are in that same boat that we are, and forgive me when I say this. I'm going to say that I'm old. You are not old, okay? I want to make sure I'm saying that. You are not old, but we are not spring chickens, okay? We're not just graduating out of high school, is my point. And that, 20 plus years later, we have decided to change our stars. So I love that for you. I love that you've done that. It was never the right time for me and had other priorities and had her stretched too thin. I have two amazing children and I cannot help wait change their life by changing mine. Been working as a floral designer for the past 21 years. Although I liked my job, I never loved it. And when I would think about what I always liked about my job, it was, quote, helping customers and helping them make decisions during highly emotional times. That is exactly what we're going to do with real estate. I was even just given a job promotion and a raise, but an opportunity presented itself. And I knew if I didn't take it, I would never forgive myself. I went from being on top of the profession to now a student. I cannot thank you enough. You have been given a gift of teaching, and I'm thankful that I have found you during the first week of my courses. I love listening to podcasts, audiobooks, music. They were replaced with your voice. Sorry about that. And also, I would like to recommend every time I felt nervous, I would take a deep breath and visualize myself finishing the test with giant letters saying passed. I know it sounds silly, but who cares? I care. That is awesome. Minnesota, and we'll totally recommend you, Kelly from Minnesota. So Kelly, thank you for that beautiful message. I love that you did that. Change your stars, go out and show your children and all that. Love the message. The other message that I have is from Laura out of Georgia. Laura writes, greetings from Marietta, which we have family down in Marietta. So Laura, if you see my family down in Marietta, tell them to come up and see me. I mean, again, I love Georgia, so I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but still, they don't ever come up here. They don't ever come up here to Indiana, where I'm from. Anyway, getting on to what Laura has to say. Brian, I'm so glad I came across your podcast after 2 failed attempts. So she took 2 times, knocked it out the 3rd time. She did not give up, guys. She did not give up, just like you're not going to give up. Today, January 14, I'm proud to say that I have passed the exam with a 78%. I did not get through most of your exams due to timing, but I'm sure I would have aced it if I had gotten through all of them. You are a huge motivator. You provided clarity and definition and context I was struggling to understand on my own. She goes on with some test tips for you, things that would have helped her that, again, might help you guys. Again, this is another perspective on preparing for the exam. She says to get a good sleep. I cannot stress that enough. I'm double stamping that one. Get good sleep. Get rest the night before. Do not study the night before. Put down your books at 5 o'clock on the night before your test. Get good, decent dinner. Go to sleep just like she's saying. Eat a protein-based breakfast. Again, I won't speak to that. I just, generally speaking, I would say don't eat a heavy breakfast. Protein, certainly, absolutely. You don't want a carb-heavy breakfast by any means, but a good protein-based. I agree with that. Take the exam early when your mind is fresh. 100% agree with that. If you have the opportunity, if you have the ability, take the exam first thing in the morning. Again, that when your mind is fresh, it's not worn out, it's ready to go. Breathing techniques, she had breathed. Love that. Practice exams until you fly through them. Keep going through those questions. I have recommended to many of your peers, to many of my peers that are interested in the field. I am sure you will be a huge assistance to them. Thank you for your work, Laura. Laura, thank you again for those messages from both of you, Kelly and Laura, and everybody. Again, I love the messages. I love hearing that I have some small part. Again, you guys are putting in the work. You guys are doing what it takes to make it happen. But again, I love being able to provide what I can to get you guys through that. So hopefully I will hear from more of you. I know I will. I know I'll hear from many more of you, and we'll hear you on the next episode. All right. So this topic this month is actually pretty light. It is on environmental issues. So on the exam, and this is going to be the part that I always cover, of course, is the national, but I have found that on state sections, most of the environmental stuff is about disclosure and requirements with regard to environmental stuff on state-specific things. So on that level, I cannot help you on the disclosure to say that, you're required to have this type of an assessment. You're required to have this type of thing in 10 days, 2 days, 5 days, whatever. So absolutely, just like every topic, make sure that you're looking up your own state-specific stuff for those state-specific pieces. But having said all that too, the other thing I wanted to point out is that even on the state exam, or on both parts of your state exam, you have the national portion and you have the state-specific portion of the exam that you'll take, the real estate exam that you'll take. There's just not a lot on the environment at all anyway. There's not a lot. If you check with your test providers, PSI, Pearson VUE, whomever is providing that exam, they'll even tell you that you might at most have like maybe 2 questions on this. So again, of all the topics that I cover, this is one that in my class, when I teach it to you guys, when I go through all the things, I'll go through it again, just so if you happen to catch one question out of what I've covered today, great. But again, this is an area that I just would not focus on. Just make it a casual thing, look over it real quickly, and again, not focus on it because there are many other topics that are a lot more important for the exam. Again, to be clear too, again, I should really qualify what I just said to say that environmental issues are not a light issue. It's not something you should pass off as a real estate agent. When your clients are buying homes, when your clients are selling homes, or dealing with real estate, commercial property, industrial property, and all that, do not take this stuff lightly. Certainly engage with experts and all that. So from that perspective, I do want to be clear. This is not a topic that I would pass off and put it in the back burner. It is absolutely something that you should be aware of because this has health implications for people. This will harm people. If you screw up a contract, maybe somebody loses money, which sucks. And, maybe you're sued and whatnot, and it's not a good day, but I'd much rather lose money. I'd much rather have that situation happen than find out that, I didn't help somebody or rather guide somebody to get a proper inspection on radon or, mold or lead paint or something like that, and find out that somebody in their house was gravely injured, maybe even possibly died from that. That's not something that you can recover from as a real estate agent. Again, I can make more money. I can sell another house down the road if I've screwed up a transaction, but this is something that you can't fix. So again, I do want to make sure I'm clear on that. But again, for the test, I just wouldn't focus on it that much. So we start off real quickly by just going through some of the different types of hazards, terms, things like that. So again, if you see any of this, I just want you to be aware. It's really, really high, low level definitional kind of stuff. There are six primary substances that you'd want to be aware of or be mindful of on the exam. The first one is asbestos. Asbestos is a mineral. It's a mineral. It's like a rock, if you want to think of it that way, that comes from the ground. They used it back prior to the 70s, late 70s and before. They used it all the time for fire resistant elements. The asbestos is fire resistant, so it made sense to use it in siding and places like that. So that way, again, if something caught fire, it wouldn't spread easily. So it did a very good job for that purpose. They would also use it for insulation because, around like radiant pipes, things like that, things that got really hot. Again, it did a great job. The problem is that asbestos causes health problems. It causes cancer, mesothelioma, things like that. So again, if you guys are familiar with that, hopefully you're not personally familiar with it, but just know that that's what that is. So asbestos is that is that material. Two other terms that you might see associated, which I just kind of let one slip. Two other terms that you might see associated with asbestos is the term friable and the term encapsulation. So again, if you see that on an exam question, I want to make sure you know what friable and encapsulation are. Friable just means that the mineral breaks down. It turns into dust. It becomes this airborne type of material that you can breathe in, which is, again, what makes it hazardous. Just having asbestos itself, just physically being there, does not necessarily make it harmful or hazardous. But if you were to touch it or something bump into it, and just like anything else, you bump into it and there's that dust around there, you breathe it in there. They're referring to the fact that asbestos is friable. It becomes this dust-like particle that flows through the air and we can breathe it. So that would be what you're looking at there. The term encapsulation is a process that professionals, that are licensed professionals, use to keep that the asbestos from becoming friable, from keeping it from becoming airborne. So they'll wrap it in like a plastic and again, special types of plastic, and they'll use special types of tape and all that kind of stuff that basically encapsulate it. Think of it like a trash bag. You put the stuff in this trash bag and you seal that trash bag off. So that way, again, when that asbestos breaks down and it becomes friable, it's stuck in that bag, if you will. So that's the type of encapsulation I'm talking about. And again, it is not putting it in a trash bag. I want to be clear. I'm just trying to make the analogy there of what encapsulation kind of looks like. It's like they wrap it so that way, again, even if it breaks down, it's not getting outside of that plastic container, that plastic bag. That's what encapsulation, and we're encapsulating the thing. The next type of a material that we want to talk about is lead paint. This is the one that certainly you'd want to be the most aware of for the exam, I think. This is one that most people are telling me they're seeing. A couple of key parts about lead paint. One, you'll find it in all kinds of areas, but particularly in homes built before 1978. So I would have that date in the back of your mind. And whenever you think of lead paint, think of the year 1978. Any home built before 1978 has the potential for lead paint, at least according to the federal government. I would go on to say that there are plenty of homes that were built after 78 that do have lead paint. That's a whole other topic I'm not going to get into. But for the management of your exam, you'll need to know that date, 1978. That prior to that is when you'll need a test. The other thing that they get into are a couple of other disclosure things. One, and this is federal disclosure. Your state might also add on to this, so verify for your state too. But for the federal level, there is the disclosure that is required. The disclosure is required both of sale and of rental of property. This is one that a lot of people miss, is that they know, when you sell a home, you're required to disclose it. You're required to fill out a disclosure form for lead paint on the sale, but many people don't realize that you also have to do it for rental property. So if I am a landlord, if I'm a property manager, I'm somebody that is involved in that rental type of situation, and the property that I'm renting is built before 1978, there is this lead paint disclosure form that a seller/landlord, property owner, has to complete and give to the potential buyer and also a potential tenant. So it is a sale as well as a rental thing and all that. With that too, another misconception that gets lost on people too is that this disclosure, again, it's a disclosure form. The disclosure does not require the seller to test for any material. All that the form requires, again, just make sure you have this in your head, is that it does not require testing. What it does is it requires the seller to disclose what they know, what they actually know. And the seller has to be truthful when they fill this out. But again, if the seller, again, we have a home that was built in 1945, so certainly way before 1978. The home was built in 1945. The seller may know, hey, I know there's lead paint in here. I had it tested when I bought it, not because I had to. I just wanted to for my own purposes. So maybe they know. Or maybe it's, I've lived here for the past 20 years or whatever it is, and I have no idea. I've never had it tested. Nobody's ever told me. There's never been an inspection. I have no idea. That's what the form requires, is that the seller / again, landlord is just required to disclose what they know. I know that it's here, or I just don't know. Again, they have to be truthful, but there's that. But it does not require an inspection. The last thing that is a component of this that you might see is that a seller must give a buyer, they're required by federal law, to give the buyer 10 days to conduct a risk assessment. So again, if you have a home built before 1978, seller has to make this disclosure. Here's this disclosure form. I know or I don't know about lead paint, et cetera, et cetera. And then the buyer has 10 days, has a 10-day right to have that property inspected for lead paint. Certainly other inspection issues, those are more contractual things that you deal with in a purchase contract. But as far as lead paint, home built before 1978, buyer has 10 days. Again, whatever other inspections they want, they can negotiate for, but this is a mandatory set by the federal government. Buyer gets 10 days to have a lead-based paint risk assessment time period that they can have, again, a professional come out, look at it, test whatever. So there is that. The next substance that we want to shift into is radon, and I want to lump this in with carbon monoxide, right? Radon and carbon monoxide, which are two completely different things, but people get them confused together. Again, just because of the way that they're usually described, because both of them, radon and carbon monoxide, is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas. It's something that, again, it's just something that we breathe in. Again, no matter where you are, there's a chance that you are breathing in radon, and certainly there's a very high likelihood that you're breathing in carbon monoxide. So again, they're both that gaseous type of material, something that we can breathe in. What makes them different, again, amongst many other things, is how they're formed, where they come from. So radon happens, again, it's that colorless, odorless, tasteless gas. It comes from the decay deep down in the earth of radioactive minerals. So again, I'm not a geologist here, guys. I'm a real estate professional. I am not a geologist. I'm not that kind of an expert. But somewhere deep below the crust of the earth, there are all kinds of radioactive materials, uranium, radium, things like that. Again, I'm a complete idiot on this stuff. But anyway, there's radioactive materials. That stuff breaks down. As it breaks down, it causes gas. This gas raises up through different cracks and fissures in the earth. Again, now it makes it sound like I really know what I'm talking about, and I really don't. But it does come up, and it enters into the atmosphere. It can be captured in the atmosphere. So that is what radon is. It's the result of that decay of radioactive minerals that are in the earth, in the earth's crust below our feet. Carbon monoxide, however, again, colorless, odorless, tasteless gas, it is due to the burning of fuels or just burning of anything in general. So anytime that you see a flame, if there is a fire, it is likely putting off carbon monoxide. To what degree? It's a whole other thing, but that is what it comes from. So we'll find carbon monoxide from gas water heaters, gas furnaces, fireplaces, things like that. So anytime that you see a flame and something is burning, wood, gas, whatever it is, carbon monoxide would be present. So again, just making you aware of both of them. And again, disclosure is required for both of those by sellers if they're aware of it. the next component that you might see is formaldehyde, urea formaldehyde too. In some cases, you can see them both. Both, and to some degree, is a chemical. It's a man-made chemical that is used in all kinds of building materials. Very notably, and unfortunately, they're used quite often in mobile homes. And so what happens is that this formaldehyde, urea formaldehyde, again, if it's not fully cured in the production process, it creates a gas. It puts off this gas that becomes harmful for people. Again, when you're living in this, it can be bad for you, obviously, in those situations. So that's what formaldehyde is. It's a chemical that's used in building material. And again, when it's not fully cured, it puts off a gas that can harm people. The last substance that you probably will see, again, I say probably, that if you're going to see any of them, this is going to be the last one, and it is mold. Mold is an organic substance. It's just basically a part of a fungi. Again, I sound like I'm a scientist here. I'm not, but just again, think of it like a mushroom. It's not a mushroom, but think of it in that same way. That mold is a spore from that, and again, the mold, basically grows this spore. The spore pops, puts out, I'll call it pollen. It's not pollen, but it's a mold spore that gets out there. We breathe it, and it causes all kinds of respiratory issues and all that. So one of the other things that you might see about that on the exam is that, again, because it's an organic substance, it grows on organic material. So paper, wood, things like that is what you'll see inside of homes. It's usually due to higher moisture content areas. So areas that, like basements for sure, you'll get into that. Areas where water has been settled for a little bit and has not been, dried out. And again, so when you have that moisture and you have this organic substance like paper, wood, whatever, mold that creates a haven for it, and it'll grow quickly. Also, dark areas, areas without sunlight is what I mean. So there's that. So those are the basic hazards that you would likely see: asbestos, lead paint, radon, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, and mold. So just have a general understanding of all 6 of those, and you'll be okay. Again, I would probably focus, if any of those, on lead paint, because that's most certainly where most of the testing is going to come from, again, if at all. There's 2 pieces of legislation to be aware of, and they're both basically tied together that deal with this. One is called the CERCLA Act, which is the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, and the second one is SARA, S-A-R-A, Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act. Basically, what these both do is that they are federal pieces of legislation that put owners on notice that they are going to be liable for cleanup if a property has some sort of an environmental concern. So they do add other things, and I'm going to add a couple of things to help if you see them on the exam. But basically, they address that we have this environmental concern. There's an oil spill. There's again asbestos, lead paint. There's this thing on the property, and it talks about the liability of owners and what they're required to do. So what makes CERCLA kind of unique from the SARA Act, if you will, what makes CERCLA unique is that it generally makes all landowners responsible, even if they weren't responsible even if they weren't the cause of the issue. So putting in a perspective, I just bought the property a year ago, had no idea what the prior owner did, and apparently they had done something bad. They caused this environmental hazard. I'm the owner today. CERCLA is going to say that it's my responsibility to clean it up, that I got to take care of it. And I might say, hey, it wasn't me. I didn't do it. The CERCLA Act's going to say it doesn't matter, Brian. You're the owner of the property today. Take care of it. Clean it up. So that's what that gets into. The other thing that makes CERCLA really important, and this is something that they did add, again, if you're going to see anything, you might see this, is that all landowners, all property owners of this are what they call jointly and severally liable for these damages. So what that says, a lot of people get confused, is that what we're getting into is that we're looking at a piece of real estate with an environmental concern, and it has multiple owners. Let's just say 5. There's 5 people that own this piece of real estate. We're all investors. We all bought this industrial property, and it's got an environmental issue, and we're all going to be responsible. So what jointly and severally liable means is that we are all jointly, all five of us are responsible. So again, without getting into the details of partnerships and LLCs and corporations, et cetera, that if those five partners, let's say that we have four of them that don't have any money, they didn't have any money, but they have all the resources, they have the work, they have all the other things that it's going to take to make this property work, and we have this fifth owner that's a multimillionaire. They put up all the money. They said, "Hey guys, I'm going to be a limited partner here. I'll put in the money, but you go on out there." Jointly liable says that all five of you are equally responsible for this. So again, let's say it's $1 million claim. We divide that $1 million by five because there's five of you. That means each of you get a cough up $200,000. Now, four of them might say, "I don't have it. We didn't put up the money." That's where the severally liable piece comes in, because it says all of you are responsible, but if only one of you or two of you can pay, then those two are paying the full amount. That one, in my example, we had the four that didn't have any money that put up the effort. They're the general partners. We have this one limited partner, this millionaire person that's a limited partner, jointly would say, all of you chip in your $200,000. Oh, you don't? The four of you don't have it? Well, we're going to look based upon the severalty factor, the severally liable factor of this, to say that that we're going after that millionaire. We're going to go after that person, and they're going to pay it all. So that means that one of the partners, one of the owners, could be liable all on their own, even though they would also be jointly liable, where they should be sharing it, but they don't have the money. So that's what that gets into. And you'll see that phrase, jointly and severally liable, in many aspects. So if you want to keep track of that, that's an important piece, is that when you have multiple owners, jointly means all of you are equally responsible. But again, you're also severally liable as well, meaning that, again, if only one of you can pay, then we're going after that one for the whole amount. We're going after you for the full amount. So that's what that is. The SARA Act, what makes it unique is that it identifies innocent landowners. Let's say that, again, in my previous example, that I just bought the property and I had no idea. I am truly an innocent party here. I had no participation. I had no knowledge. Nobody told me. I bought the property and, oh my gosh, look at this environmental issue. The SARA Act created what's called a super fund, which is what the SARA comes from, as a Superfund amendment, that it creates this super fund that the federal government will pay to clean up my property. Again, I'm the owner of it. I just bought it, but I walked into a nightmare and I was not aware of that nightmare. So I'm an innocent landowner. The federal government's going to say, "Here, Brian, here is some money. We want you to clean it up. Take care of that. We know you don't have the money. We know it's not your responsibility. It's not, you didn't cause it. But we want to clean it up." So they will give money to that landowner to get that environmental issue cleaned up, because they don't want it to be locked into litigation where, again, I just bought the property, I'm going to sue the seller because they didn't tell me, and we get locked into this 2, 3, 5, 7 year court case that gets drug out over time, and meanwhile the environment is being harmed, it's being damaged still while we're going through court. So that SARA Act, that Superfund Amendment Act, basically says, here's the money, just get it cleaned up now. We'll deal with the litigation still. If that takes 7 years, we get our money back at that point 7 years from now, that's fine. We just want to take care of it. So that's what the SARA Act does. It protects those innocent landowners. Again, this money would not go to somebody that caused the issue. So there's that. The last thing that you might see on the exam about this, and there's a couple of questions I have for you to kind of go through that, is an inspection. So generally speaking, there are, I say, 3 inspections. This is actually a 3-phase inspection thing. So phase one is basically just an interview process. It's an overview. We're going to walk the property. When I say we, I mean a professional environmental site assessment expert that knows about all this stuff, that this is somebody that maybe we would hire or our clients would hire to look at the property. So they go out and they walk the property, they look around, see if there's anything that again, with their expertly trained eyes and whatnot, they're looking around to see, is there any issues? They look at prior owners. They look at history. They look at prior land use, zoning use, things like that. So that's what a phase one is going to be, is that we're just going to do this quick, not quick, but relatively quick view of the property. We're going to look at it physically. We're going to go back to our office, do some research, and we're going to look to see if something turns up in that phase one, like, oh my gosh, we saw some leaking containers, or we noticed that 10 years ago, this used to be a gas station or a car repair station or something like that, a dry cleaner, something like that, then they might say, okay, those could have caused a problem. So that then enters into what is known as a phase two. Phase two is testing. Phase two, we're actually going to take samples. And again, I keep saying we, is the environmental site expert that goes out and takes samples. You know, they dig down into the earth and pull up some core samples of the earth. They'll test the water, they'll test the concrete, they'll do what they think is necessary. So phase two is an actual testing. That phase one showed some red flags, but we aren't sure. So we need to do a phase two of this testing to make sure that nothing did actually happen. And then ultimately, if that phase two does show that there is some contamination, that there is an environmental concern, then we go to the phase three, which is not a test. It's not an inspection. Phase three is the cleanup. So you'll hear it called either a two-phase type of inspection, which is accurate because there are two pieces of the inspection. There's the phase one, which is, again, the cursory overview. Phase two is the testing. But I've also heard it as a phase three, where you have the phase one, phase two, and the phase three is not an inspection. We're cleaning it up now. So phase three is that we're taking care of the issue that we did discover both in phase one and in phase two. So that is basically it for the topics that I have, the definitions and terms and all that. So the next thing I want to do is work through a few questions, again, just to kind of get your mind on where you might see some of these for the state exam. All right, the first question is, a buyer wants to purchase an old gas station and turn it into a donut shop. What type of environmental inspection will the lender likely require? A is phase one, B is phase two, C is phase three, and D, the lender cannot make any requirement. Well, answer D is wrong, because the lender absolutely can make an inspection a requirement. If we're loaning the money, I'm the lender, I want to loan the money. Before I loan money, I do not want to. I, as the bank, I do not want to get involved in any kind of environmental litigation at all. So lenders can and will very regularly require this. So answer D is not right. The trick here, guys, excuse me. God bless fucking America. All right, so the first question is, a buyer wants to purchase an old gas station and turn it into a donut shop. What type of environmental inspection will the lender require? The answers are a phase one, a phase two, a phase three, or the fourth answer is the lender cannot make any requirement. Let's go ahead and throw out answer D, because I'm going to tell you guys that the lender absolutely can. Imagine being the bank. I'm going to loan you money per investor on some commercial property, and if there's an environmental problem on that, I'm going to get wrapped up in that too, and I'm not interested as a lender in dealing with that. So the lender can absolutely require this. Some people will think, well, they can't do it because it's not their property. They absolutely, and in fact, almost certainly will. Now, what makes this question tricky is that some people would say that maybe we should go automatically to a phase three because it's an old gas station. But remember, phase three is the cleanup. There might not be anything to clean up. However, do we need to do a phase one here? Remember, the phase one is to look for red flags. That again, we're assuming that nothing's wrong, but we're looking just in case. So we're looking for those red flags. The fact that this is a gas station or an old gas station already creates the red flag. So why are we doing a phase one? We already know we have a red flag. There's no point in going through a phase one because we know there's a red flag. So we're going to eliminate that answer too. And the correct answer here is B. We are going to do a phase two. We're not doing a phase one because we already know the red flag. Phase one is to find red flags. We already know it. We already know it. So let's just avoid the phase one altogether. Phase three, we don't know if we need to clean up anything yet. We might, but we don't know yet. What we need to do is that phase two. Let's do that testing. They're going to do core samples, things like that, do the tank inspections, whatnot. That's what the phase two is going to be. So that is the correct answer for that one. Next question. An investor purchased an old warehouse which was built in 1948 and formerly housed a dry cleaner. What should the agent suggest to their client to include when submitting an offer? Well, again, as I'm reading through this question, there's a couple of very important things to pay attention to here. And again, these are things that you might see on the exam, but also you need to be aware of when you're a licensed agent. First, we gave a magic number, a magic year, 1948. We know that that is before 1978. So we already know that there's the potential for lead paint. Again, a red flag. It might not be there, but the fact that it was built before 1978 gives us the red flag. So we have that. Also, it formerly housed a dry cleaner. I don't know if you guys know anything about dry cleaning. I'm not an expert on it, but I know they use some pretty nasty chemicals, things like that can cause environmental concerns. So we already have two red flags. So the question again asks is, what should the agent suggest to their client before submitting an offer? The answers are writing in a contingency upon environmental tests, B, contingency on a seller's disclosure, C, nothing. The seller would have told the buyer of every defect, including environmental concerns, and D, ask their lender for environmental advice. Well, let's work backwards here because D is ridiculous. Ask the lender for environmental advice. That's like asking a cook, what kind of oil should I put in my Bronco? I've got a car out in the back, and what kind of oil should I use? I mean, they're a cook. They deal with olive oil and all that. Certainly they should know about engine oil, right? No, they don't know anything about this stuff. I'm not asking my lender for environmental advice. I need to go to who? An environmental expert. So let's throw D out. C, nothing. The seller would have told the buyer of every defect. Again, they're kind of tongue-in-cheek here, but what if the seller just didn't know? So again, we don't want to have that. I would not want to suggest that we're assuming that the seller's being honest. We're assuming that the seller is being forthright, but what if they just didn't know? So we're not doing that. B is basically the same answer, contingency on the seller's disclosure. Again, I want that seller's disclosure. I want to know what the seller knows, but what I need to do is write an offer contingent upon an environmental test. Again, we already know their stuff. We already know their stuff that's a problem or potential problem. Home built before 1978, used to be used as a dry cleaner, so we need to have an environmental test done. So the answer is A, contingent upon environmental tests. Next question. A seller mentions to his agent that the previous owners of his property may have dumped hazardous waste on the site. Under the Comprehensive Environmental Compensation Liability Act, that CERCLA Act, who is liable for the damages from the dumping prior to the sale of the property? So again, seller mentions the previous owners did this. Who is responsible? Under the CERCLA Act, is it the seller? Is it the prior owner that caused the dumping of hazardous waste? Is it the buyer, or is it the agent? Well, if you remember, we already said this when I went through the CERCLA Act before. The owner of the property, whoever owns it, you clean it up. Doesn't matter that the prior owner did it. So B is not the answer here. This is a seller saying that, hey, I knew it was out there, or I may be aware of it. The CERCLA Act is going to say then that means seller, you get to clean it up. It is not the prior owner. You might be able to sue the prior owner. There might be some secondary issue that you can deal with from a lawsuit standpoint. But at the end of the day, CERCLA says, seller, you are cleaning it up. You're the owner. Certainly not the buyer. They're not the owner yet. And certainly not the agent. You weren't involved in that at all as far as the being the owner. So there's that answer. There is that question. Next question. All the following correctly describe how real estate licensees should handle the possibility of hazardous substances on property being sold except. So again, this is kind of a tricky question just because we're looking for the one that describes or incorrectly describes what an agent should do. So this is asking which of the following or all the following describe how an agent should react when there's a possible hazardous substance on the property, except which one? A, clients should be asked about the possibility of hazardous substances on the property. That makes sense. I think that's a good thing to do. So that's not going to be your answer because remember, we're looking for the one that you shouldn't be doing. B, licensees should consider the consequences of potential liability. Absolutely, we want to do this, both for ourselves as well as for our clients. Item C, licensees should be scrupulous in considering environmental issues. Absolutely that too. Again, I want to watch over it. I'm not conducting inspections. I'm not looking for things. But again, there might be red flags. I want to be aware of it. I don't want to ignore it. Answer D, licensees should not disclose the problem because it might harm the seller. This is an answer that some people choose because, again, when it comes to disclosure, generally speaking, we're not going to want to do things that would harm our client, our seller. In this case, however, this is an environmental concern. So the seller, you are required by federal law to disclose this stuff. If you do not, I, as your agent, will disclose it. So answer D says the licensee should not disclose the problem. That is incorrect. You are required to disclose the problem. So answer D is the correct answer because it's the wrong answer, if that makes sense. It's the one that you should not be doing. And that's what the question's asking. It's saying you should be doing all these things except this one thing. Answer D is the thing that you should not be doing. So that is the answer that is going to get you the correct answer for the exam. Next question, regarding the Federal Lead-Based Paint Hazard Reduction Act, which is true? A, all residential housing built before 1978 must be tested for the presence of lead before being listed for sale or lease. We already told you this. No testing is required, so we can get rid of that answer. No testing is required. Answer B, a disclosure statement must be attached to all sales contracts and leases involving residential property built before 1978. That sounds like the right answer, guys. That sounds like the right answer, but let's go through the next ones to make sure. C, a lead hazard pamphlet may be distributed to only purchasers of homes. What did I tell you before earlier about this as well? Is this just for purchases, guys? Or, oh yeah, it also involves rental. So C is not right. I mean, it is correct mostly until it said only purchasers of the home. It is not only purchasers of the home. There is a lead-based paint hazard or lead hazard pamphlet that may be distributed to purchasers and tenants of the home, but not only purchasers because it also goes to tenants. So that makes that incorrect. The last answer, potential answer, is purchasers of homes before 1978 must be given 7 business days to test for the presence of lead. Gosh, that sounds a lot right, but there's a magic number there that I told you to remember as well. That magic number was 10, not 7. So that answer is not correct. Again, it's a correct statement up until the point where it said 7 days. The correct answer is 10 days. So I think our answer B, the second answer that we gave is definitely true. A disclosure statement must be attached to all sales contracts and leases involving residential properties built before 1978. So there you go. Next question. A real estate professional showed a pre-World War I house to a prospective buyer. The buyer has 2 toddlers and is worried about potential health hazards. Which of the following is true? Pre-World War I. Again, I am not a history expert, but I know that was way before 1978, wasn't it? That was back in the early 1900s, in the early 20th century. So somewhere in the 1910s to 1920s. I know I'm probably an idiot here. I should know my history better. I know that it was around the 1910-ish, 1920-ish era. So work with me on that. But we know it's been a while. So understanding that and knowing that our buyer has 2 toddlers, 2 children, and worried about potential hazards, which of the following is true? A, there is a risk that urea formaldehyde foam insulation was used in the original construction. We didn't talk about this, but urea formaldehyde did not exist back then. Formaldehyde did, but not urea formaldehyde. So that is not a correct answer. It was not. Urea formaldehyde is, I say, relatively new. It's newer, or it came after World War I. Let's just say that. So that is not the correct answer. B, the real estate professional should conduct their own assessment of the site and offer their guidance on the potential health hazards. Guys, do not do this. Certainly walk through the home and maybe point out red flags, but always say, you know what? You have toddlers, you have concerns. We need to have an expert out here. I'll take a quick look around, but again, it's just going to be, it's no more me helping you than you're going to be able to help yourself. I'm not an environmental expert. So that's not something we're going to do. C, the buyer should not worry about any health hazards because all health insurance policies cover every environmental defect in a property. And that is absolutely incorrect too, both from the standpoint that even if insurance policies took care of all this, and it does not even by a close stretch of the imagination, but let's pretend that it is. I've got a client with 2 toddlers. Is insurance going to help when that kid gets lead poisoning? I mean, it'll help with the medical bill, but it's not going to cure that kid. So absolutely, even if that statement were true, that insurance covers everything, it's not going to take care of the health concerns and all that. So absolutely, that's not the correct answer. Answer D, because of the age of the home, there is a likelihood of lead-based paint. That's obviously the answer, guys. This home was easily built before 1978, so that means that there could be lead paint, so we want to make them aware of that. So because of the age, let them know that there's a likelihood of lead-based paint. Let's get an inspector out there to test to make sure. That's the answer. Last question for you guys. Last question on this topic is environmental concerns are potentially found in every property. As a result, a real estate professional should A, conduct a full site assessment and render their opinion of any concerns to their clients. Just like the previous question got into, agents, this is not what we do. Again, I'll walk the property, but I am not going to give my opinion about anything other than maybe just really big red flags. And even then it's going to say, follow up that looks like that could be mold, but let's get an expert out there to look at that. So I'm not doing this. B, ignore any issues they feel might be a concern, but it's because it's the client's responsibility to check for defects. This is also likely not going to be your answer. I will be clear on this. Some states might put this on the buyer client. There's something called caveat emptor, which requires a buyer to check it out. So I do want to qualify that answer, but if you're talking about the national portion of the exam, the national portion, B is not the correct answer. You do not ignore any issues they feel might be a concern because it's the client's responsibility to check for the defects. Again, in your state-specific part, that might be an answer, but on the national, that is not going to be the answer. Answer C, make suggestions on how to repair any known hazard. Not doing that either. Again, I'm not an environmental expert. Answer D, make note of any health hazards that are apparent on the property, ask their clients about any concerns the client may have about those hazards, and suggest hiring professional site assessment contractors to further investigate any noted concerns. That sounds like the answer to me, guys. That sounds like the answer. That is the good thing to do. That is the smart thing to do as a real estate agent. So be smart on that. All right. That is it for this. Again, I know it's a relatively light topic. Again, as I said before, I wouldn't focus a lot on it, but certainly be aware of it in the real world, guys. Again, just story after story I could share with you on just terrible situations, lawsuits, things like that. Don't get involved in that yourself. This is something that you cannot recover from, not easily. March's episode is about, I don't know yet. I'm going to think about that. We're going to get into that, but March's episode will be coming up next month. If you are an Indiana resident, please look at my classes. I'd love to have you. Class has been growing. We are getting ready to open up, as I'd mentioned, schools in other states. So be watching us for there. Go to our website, ahareep.com, ahareep.com. Become a member. Spend $35. Even put in the code LEGEND15 and get $5 off of it that way. It's only $30. That will give you 1,000 questions, flashcards, digital flashcards, videos, topic videos. You want to learn more about investment or environmental stuff? I've got videos on this too. So go after that. Check that stuff out. Again, appreciate you guys sharing this with your friends. Give me a 5-star rating on your listening platform and all that. Other than that, guys, take care of yourself. I'm going to go get some rest. It's been a long couple of weeks. I'm still recovering, but we are going to knock it out just like you're going to knock out the exam. Thank you for listening. Good luck on your exam. Take care and have a legendary day.